What if I told you that 102 people with just one ship changed the future of an entire nation? Their journey wasn't just a trip across the ocean, it was the birth of a new world. Let's dive into the incredible story of how a small group of pioneers shaped America forever. Before it became a symbol of American history, the Mayflower was just another merchant ship. Built in England, it was designed for carrying cargo, not people. For over a decade, the Mayflower transported wine, cloth, and goods across Europe. But in 1620, it was hired for an entirely different purpose: to carry a group of religious separatists and adventurers across the Atlantic to the New World. The ship, roughly 100 feet long and 25 feet wide, wasn't built for comfort. Yet, it would soon become the unlikely stage for one of the most significant journeys in history. The Mayflower's passengers were far from a homogeneous group. At its heart were the Pilgrims, deeply religious families seeking to escape persecution and establish a society based on their faith. But they were joined by strangers, adventurers, craftsmen, and laborers with no religious ties to the Pilgrims. Many of these individuals were recruited by the ship's backers, who needed skilled hands to make the colony viable. Among them were also women, children, and even indentured servants. This mixture of idealists and pragmatists created a delicate balance aboard the Mayflower as they began their journey united by one shared goal: survival and prosperity in a new, untamed land. The reasons for the Mayflower's journey were as diverse as its passengers. For the Pilgrims, it was a matter of faith. They were desperate to escape the grip of the Church of England and create a society where they could worship freely. However, their time in the Netherlands had shown them that religious freedom wasn't enough. They struggled economically and feared their children would lose their English identity. For the strangers, the motives were more practical. Economic hardship and lack of opportunity in England made the New World a tempting prospect. Funded by investors who sought profits from the colony, the Mayflower's passengers saw this voyage as a chance to start over, whether driven by faith, fortune, or both. Now let me ask you, if you had been among the passengers of the Mayflower, what would have driven you to embark on such a perilous journey? Faith, fortune, or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. The Mayflower's voyage was nothing short of harrowing. Originally, the Pilgrims planned to travel aboard 2 ships, but the smaller Speedwell proved unseaworthy, forcing all 102 passengers onto the cramped Mayflower. The journey, lasting over 66 days, tested their endurance. Storms battered the ship, causing leaks and tossing passengers into chaos. The overcrowded conditions led to illness, and food supplies were scarce. During the crossing, 1 passenger died, but a baby was also born, keeping the total number at 102. Despite these hardships, they arrived in the New World with their spirits intact, though the real challenges were just beginning. On November 11, 1620, after over 2 months at sea, the Mayflower finally sighted land. But instead of their intended destination in Virginia, they arrived at Cape Cod, far to the north. With winter approaching and resources running low, the passengers decided to settle nearby. They eventually anchored in Plymouth Harbor, where tradition says they first stepped onto the now famous Plymouth Rock. Though the rock's significance remains more symbolic than factual, it represents the courage of those who dared to start anew in a wild, unfamiliar land. The Pilgrims saw this moment as the beginning of their covenant with God to establish a society built on their shared beliefs. The first winter in the New World was a brutal and heart-wrenching experience. The settlers were unprepared for the harsh cold and had no proper shelters. Starvation became a constant threat as their food supplies ran dangerously low, and disease spread quickly through the group. By the time spring arrived, nearly half of the original 102 settlers had perished. Just when their survival seemed impossible, help came from an unexpected source: the Wampanoag tribe, led by Chief Massasoit. Though wary at first, the Wampanoag began to share resources and knowledge with the Pilgrims, opening the door to a fragile but essential alliance. This relationship gave the settlers a lifeline, allowing them to endure and continue their efforts to establish a foothold in the New World. Among the settlers' greatest allies was Squanto, a native from the Patuxet tribe with an extraordinary story. Years before the Pilgrims arrived, Squanto was captured by an English trader named Thomas Hunt, who planned to sell him and other natives into slavery. Squanto was taken to England, where he lived and worked for a merchant named John Slaney. During his time in England, he learned the English language and European customs. Squanto later returned to North America, only to find his tribe had been wiped out by disease. His unique skills made him an invaluable guide for the Pilgrims. He showed them how to fish, identify edible plants, and grow corn in the unfamiliar soil of the New World. Squanto's help was crucial for the settlers' survival during their first year, and his contributions are celebrated today as part of Thanksgiving traditions in the United States. The Pilgrims' first winter was devastating, and survival demanded unity. However, before they could face the challenges of the New World, they needed to establish order among themselves. One critical step had already been taken before they set foot on land: the creation of the Mayflower Compact. On November 11, 1620, aboard the Mayflower, they drafted and signed what would become a cornerstone of American democracy. This short but powerful document established the principles of self-governance and majority rule. It was an agreement to create laws and elect leaders for the good of the community, laying the foundation for democratic governance in America. Though simple, the Mayflower Compact is celebrated as one of the earliest examples of a social contract in the New World. The legacy of the Mayflower Compact and the Pilgrims' journey goes far beyond their small colony in Plymouth. The principles they established, self-governance, mutual responsibility, and the rule of law, became foundational to the American identity. These ideas would later inspire the Founding Fathers during the creation of the U.S. Constitution. The Pilgrims' resilience and commitment to community served as an example for future settlers, fostering the belief that democracy could thrive even in the harshest conditions. From the 102 passengers aboard the Mayflower, a remarkable transformation began. Despite losing nearly half their group during the first harsh winter, the survivors established a foothold in the New World. Over time, their small colony grew, attracting new settlers and expanding into neighboring territories. The principles of self-governance and community they established served as a blueprint for future colonies, eventually uniting under shared ideals of freedom and democracy. The Pilgrims' descendants and the settlers who followed built farms, towns, and cities, laying the foundation for what would become the United States. From this humble beginning, a nation of millions was born, carrying forward the values and resilience of those original 102. Their story reminds us that even the smallest beginnings can lead to great outcomes. What would you risk to build a better future? Let us know in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.